Whenever people talk about robots, they really come up to the idea of robots never sleep and they never eat and they're just a continuously coming force that there's no way we could ever beat because we get tired. First of all, that's all BS because robots do sleep and they do eat, but we're not going to talk about that in this video. That'll come some other time. But the reason those two capabilities, those two strengths of robots are used so often is because robots have the patience to actually utilize them. And this is the idea that robots, machines, have patience. Whereas humans get bored doing something incredibly mundane and repetitive, robots don't do that. That's what makes these machines really incredible, because there's absolutely no reason that they should become bored. Let me give you an example. Imagine that you have a huge 50-gallon drum, a big old tank, water tank about yay big. So let's say, now you have an eyedropper. Start filling that tank. And tell me when you're done, and if you finish. You're probably not going to do that, because that kind of a job is something we are not wired to do. We are meant to be on the move, getting stuff done, doing something or another, or at least sitting on a couch watching this video. I don't know what kind of person you are. Maybe you're running around. Anyway, we don't like to do the same thing for years. We don't think that way. We don't have that kind of time scale very often. But robots do. A robot would be perfectly happy using an eyedropper to fill a tank. Now that's not a very applicable use. That doesn't mean, whoa, world-changing device. No, it doesn't. But that kind of thought is really important. People change the light on me. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, the reason robots, this is really important, is think of some huge task that we have right now. You could say deserts forming. You could say trash buildup. Let's say cleaning up trash or watering a desert. We'll stay with watering the desert right now because we talked about a water barrel. Imagine yourself now, and you had a cup, just a cup. And 50 miles away, there's an ocean or a lake or a river or something. But right over here is where there's a desert, and you have to water the plants, and you want to move this desert backwards. You want to force it back and stop its progression, stop its growth. A person will not take that cup of water, walk 50 miles back and forth, watering this plant, trying to make the desert wet and lush again. That's never going to happen. But imagine if you had a robot like the size of your fist, or a couple of fists, about yay big, and it could carry a half a cup of water, or a cup of water, or something like that, and it's solar powered. So basically you turn it loose and it just goes, and it goes the 50 miles to water their plant. Now robots that are solar powered can't go 50 miles, it's an energy problem, but that's not the point. It goes and it continuously goes back and forth, bringing water from somewhere far away and bringing it to where it's needed. Normally you would need a pipeline with this, which requires a huge amount of organization and a huge amount of infrastructure and people to get it done and so on and so forth, and then it leaks and it's broke down and it's maintained, everything else. But if you just took this robot and let it do the job, it alone would not do very much. But let's say we mass manufacture these things and we have a few thousand, maybe 100,000 of these robots going back and forth, carrying water to this desert. And they're a bunch of like a little line of ants. Eventually, they would be able to fight that back. And there's a lot better examples of this. Imagine invasive weeds. Invasive weeds are plants that are coming into an area that are foreign to it, and therefore they take over the environment and beat out the native species. Normally, you would have the only thing that would work for this kind of a situation is really to just have a bunch of guys go down with handheld weed sprayers and spray those weeds one at a time. That's the only really well-controlled means that we have right now. And a person can only go for 8 hours a day and then they get tired. But if you have a robot that just goes out and squirts a few weeds every day, or maybe 100 weeds every day, but there's millions of these things. And then you make a few of those robots, and they're each spraying 100 weeds a day. Then you start to make a dent. Then you're able to move continuously and unceasingly, kind of like nature does, because those weeds are coming on continuously and unceasingly. They don't stop. You have to, because you have life to live. But robots are an artificial balancing mechanism. They could stop those weeds, slow them down, make them do other things. The other kind of idea is litter. We can't pick up litter quick enough. We can't sort through landfills quick enough. But robots have nothing else to do, and they don't care. That's why they're so powerful. This is really where robots are important. Because people always say, oh, robots like to do repetitive tasks. And what everybody thinks of is then a robot welding cars together. That's true too, because you have millions of cars out there right now that could never have been manufactured by people. We simply don't have the volume capabilities. But robots, because they are so patient, we're able to use their capabilities to unceasingly produce something. And they don't have to produce faster or better than we do, they just have to do it continuously. A really good analogy to this is, imagine you have a grandpa who drives 25 miles per hour. Some grandpas kind of do that. Go to Florida sometime. He drives 25 miles per hour. You give him an hour head start, and you just let him go. And then you start, and you drive 50 miles per hour. And you have to make it like a 3-hour trip. It's possible you might never catch him before the destination is hit, even though you're going faster. Just because he continuously keeps on going and never stops at that 25 speed, you can't catch up with him. And that's kind of what robots are. They can be a little bit slower, but since they go continuously and they never stop for a break or something while they're racing along like we would, they get there sooner than we do. And since we're not involved in the time of them producing it, it might take them longer in their time to get it done, but who cares? We still have the same result. And robots can also think in decades as opposed to years or months like we do. You could set robots to work cleaning up the weeds on one half of the United States and just turn a few of them loose, and they would beat it back, and it might take them 20 years. But that's better than what people would have done, because we would have tried it for a year, said, we can't do this, and moved on to something else. But robots just have continuous capability to keep on taking the next step and keep on doing the same thing again, because they don't have an emotional investment in it, like, son of a gun. No, they're just like, spray the weed, spray the weed. That's why robots are incredibly, incredibly powerful. And everybody's scared of the robot uprising. I'm not. They're going to do some awesome stuff just through their patience. And there's all kinds of other capabilities that robots can have that we will talk about in some of these videos. Thanks, everybody.